if we're making decisions,
Right.
we have to factor in the concept of growth in that decision-making process. Is this something that's helping us? Is it going to help us bring in these jobs? Is it going to help us do these sort of things? Is it going to add to the livability of Victoria, which is part of growth, right? Like these projects we're talking about are all part of growth. It's not just purely economic. It's, how livable is this town, right? How livable is this city? That's all part of growth. And so we need to be thinking about that mindset that it should at least be part of the equation when we're making decisions.
Well, welcome back to another episode of Town Talk. We are very excited to have here in our quasi-studio office here, the mayor of Victoria, Mr. Dwayne Crocker himself.
Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for being
I've been
here.
jealous all the other folks in the city have been getting to come in, so I feel like I'm joining the cool kids squad.
We had to lead up. We had to build the excitement.
Right.
That's what it was all about.
Sure.
So I'm just going to kind of ask a few questions, and then you share whatever it is that you want to talk about. But the main goal was to talk briefly, if you don't mind, since we're kind of kicking up in high gear in 2025.
Sure.
We're just kind of recapping some of the 2024 successes. I know there was a lot that you and council with city manager's office and all of the city staff, were able to spearhead. So do you want to talk about some of that first?
Sure, absolutely. 2024 obviously was a big year from the standpoint of the bicentennial, right? I mean, it was a dominant theme. And I think the city did a great job. Staff did a fantastic job on all the events throughout the year. But kind of as part of that and a little bit behind the scenes of that, which I hope people realize, 2024 was a huge year for public facilities, public infrastructure in Victoria in terms of cool places, right? And that was all kind of part of a lot of work before that. They just happened to hit several of them at the same time.
It felt like all at once. My goodness.
And thankfully during the bicentennial year, it made it that much more special,
Yeah.
So, and I'm thinking like the duck pond. The duck pond was years in the making, took a lot of work.
That's true.
Kind of had hit the brakes on that so that we could get some money from the state, which was always good, right? And so we waited on the state.
We'll take it.
But we'll take
We'll
it.
wait
That's
if we
right.
need to, a
So it
little
turns
bit.
out that hit in 24, and we learned through that. Those of us from Victoria, I think, knew, but I think we all learned just how near and dear the duck pond is to people's hearts.
No kidding.
It's an iconic venue in Victoria. Came out fantastic, and we had real good feedback on that. So I was glad to see that. Also in the park, we had the dog park, that was in the making, and a great tribute to Izzy Drain and her family. What a cool way to make that happen.
Right.
And I think that was a big kind of popular facility that was added in Victoria, if you will. And then, of course, we also had the big one was Dayline Plaza expansion, which was really highlighted during the bicentennial. But, that was one of those projects that I think there was a lot of questions about, okay, what does this look like? What are we going to do? We're in a historic area. And after the fact, I think the feedback was, man, this was an long overdue project.
Right.
It's transformational for downtown.
Yeah.
It really kind of set the heart for downtown, if you will.
Right.
And I think we've seen that through its usage. Since it was completed, I think it's been pretty well used every weekend by some type of event, big ones, small ones, and I think we see that carrying on through events that happen in 24 that are rescheduled to take place, at De Leon Plaza in 25. So, that was the goal. That was the plan was, hey, let's go in and let's do something, transforms downtown, but also transforms the community.
Absolutely.
I've said public aesthetics matter. We talked about our recent council meeting that aesthetics matter, and talking about KVB and all the great work that they do.
Right.
Public aesthetics matter because it's community pride. It's you want to feel proud of your hometown. You want to feel like, hey, this is something I want to invest in. And I think when people come and they look at that, whether they're visitors, whether they're tourists, whether they're outside industry or businesses looking to come, they get a sense of that and they feel that. So I think that project was a fantastic project that,
Yeah.
that I'm really, really proud of, and proud of the city on that.
Right.
And then the other one, we're not completed with it yet, but we're right in the middle of it, and that's the public safety headquarters,
Oh, yes.
which is, not necessarily as public of a venue as what we're talking about,
Sure.
but it's certainly another transformative project and transformational
Absolutely.
type project, particularly for, our PD or fire department
Right.
and Judge Heinhold and the municipal court, huge deal.
Right.
70,000 square feet. The great news on that is we're going to complete that in 25. We're on schedule. We're
Awesome.
on budget.
I was just going to ask about that.
yeah. So all of that's wonderful, and that project is going very well. Into summer, first part of fall is, I think, kind of our completion date. So that's what we're targeting now. So that'll be big news for this year.
Right.
Once we can get that done and ribbon cutting, looking forward
yeah.
to, opening it up
Yes.
and letting people come in, look
I'm
around,
looking forward
take
to
a peek.
taking a tour.
No, it'll be fun. It'll be
Mayor,
fun.
I have to
So-
tell you, kudos to you all on all of these projects, as you mentioned, coming to fruition. I know it all stemmed from a lot of your work, but a lot of support, so I just wanted to say that.
Well, I appreciate it.
yeah,
Thank you.
of
Thank you. I'm not going to sit up here and say, "Oh, this was my idea."
I
There's
know.
a lot
I
of
know you
people,
won't.
a lot of people worked
Yeah.
on these, and a lot of, well, what if we did this? What if we did that? And kind of looking at some different alternatives. But
Right.
I'm proud of the work we're doing. So.
Yeah, agreed. So speaking of work y'all are doing, I just obviously came out of a council meeting where y'all have a lot obviously being worked on in 2025 as well. It doesn't stop there.
No,
It kind of, what else is coming up around this year?
Sure. So 2025, we are continuing on our goal. I don't know if you remember, several years ago, we set a goal. I think it was 112 miles. I never got an explanation on that weird number,
Random
but
number.
it was 112
But it
miles.
sticks,
That's what
right?
it is, right?
Yeah, you remembered it.
And so that we're 112 miles of streets to be redone before 2026. And so in 25, we have continued that effort. Residential streets,
Right.
I'm referring to. We've continued that effort in a big way. And I think we're on track that hopefully 26 next year we can hit that. So that's pretty
Awesome.
exciting,
Yeah.
especially when you take it in line of the fact that we're doing these other things. This
Right.
isn't just we're focused on this. We're not ignoring with these projects and with some of these public, facility projects. We're not ignoring, our bread and butter, day-to-day things that we need to be
Right.
doing with the streets. And I know that's important to citizens.
It
And
is.
so that's definitely something that we're continuing. I think you'll see, in fact, I know you'll see this year, our next kind of big project that we want to look at is the community center.
Yes.
She has served us well. Could use,
Some love, a little bit.
little love. Could use some love,
Sure.
but not just in terms of just taking what we have and sprucing it up, so to speak. We want to actually take what we have, add to it, do some rearranging, move
make
some
it more
things around.
modern
Yeah,
and-
absolutely.
yeah.
And make it to where it can be used in a way that it's never been able to be used before.
Right.
But in terms of being able to host larger events,
Right.
Bigger type conferences or big personal events even, weddings and
Yep,
things of that nature.
quinceañeras.
Yep, exactly. And being able to host a couple of events at the same time.
Yeah.
Within the same
Right.
same facility. That's going to necessitate moving some things around, like the stage and doing some of that.
Right.
The arena that we currently have, because of some of its limitations, we're actually looking at turning that arena into more of an exhibit hall. That would be a multi-use exhibit hall that could
Yeah.
be closed off from the dome. Or could be opened up to the dome so that you have a big event utilizing, both of those spaces. Separate entrances and, just some things like that. And then the addition would be, because that arena does have restrictions, we want one that we can use. And so,
Right.
We're looking at adding an arena that we could host rodeos, that we could host concerts in. 3,400 seats for rodeos, probably.
huge.
Yeah, 4,500, 5,000. We don't have anything like
That's
that.
amazing. No, we don't.
So 4,500, 5,000 for concerts, using the floor and that sort of
Right,
thing.
yeah.
We really think, we really think that will open up opportunity for Victoria for use of our facility
I can see that.
in a way that it hasn't been able to be used in the past, and so, it's one of those projects that I think, kind of like DeLeon Plaza, once everybody realized, hey, this was long overdue and we need to do it. I think this project is long overdue and it needs to be done. I think we can make the community center more of a source of pride for the community, that'll get more use, bring in some other events and do that sort of thing. And so I'm hoping we can seize on the momentum we have on these and push this project forward as well. So
Right.
So that's from a facility standpoint, those are two big ones.
Absolutely.
For 25,
Right.
but there's always lots going on. So.
Oh, no kidding. We just went through a laundry list of amazing things that I personally, and I know our staff, right, AJ over there, I know you have heard a lot about the community just really welcoming in this. They always say growth, Mayor. I don't know if you knew that, but we oftentimes look at reports online about what people are saying about the community.
Right.
And they'll say, man, there's a lot of growth happening, to your point about all these completed projects. But I've heard you and Jesus talking about recently,
Right.
when you say growth. Those are projects completed that are amazing. And I love that you mentioned streets, because last time I think I talked about briefly Duck Pond Dog Park, De Leon Plaza expansion, and some of the residents were wanting to know a little bit more about the streets, and I know you mentioned that, so I'm very excited to see the 112 miles, completed in a few years. That's exciting. I don't know if people realize how big of a deal that is. We have, Ken's going to correct me if he hears this, 326 miles total in Victoria, and you guys are doing 112. That's amazing, at least up until 2026. So my point was, growing Victoria, Mayor, I know means a lot to you right now. And
Sure.
so I thought you want to kind of talk about that for a minute.
Yeah, sure. No, and you're exactly right. Growing Victoria, growth means different things to different people, right? And so, when you talk about conversations that Jesus and I have had, one of the things that's kind of come out of those conversations and with our economic development, in-house in the city is kind of this growing Victoria concept, and this growing Victoria initiative. And I talked about it in my State of the City address, I think back in May or whenever that was.
That was amazing.
Yeah, well, no.
You did awesome.
I had a lot of good help, so I'll take zero credit for that. But we talked about, this growing Victoria, and this is an initiative, It's something that I'm hoping we can build on kind of where we are, because we are really in the beginning stages of that, of growing Victoria as a concept, and kind of what does that look like? What does it mean? Why is it important? That sort of thing. So if you look back in Victoria over the last 20 years, I think our growth rate has been somewhere around 13% over that time period. You think, well, that's not bad. You look at other cities similarly situated to Victoria, and their growth rate is approaching 100% in some instances. Now, I'm not suggesting that, 100% is the goal, know, but what we've seen is that cities that do have a growth rate that is more than 13%, okay? Sure. They're not having some of the same economic struggles, some of the same economic restrictions that we're seeing because of that lack of growth. Right. And so when we talk about growth, we're talking about we're not just talking about population, right? We're talking about growing the footprint of Victoria in terms of businesses, in terms of industry. And some of it's, housing, so that may, that includes population, in that. But also growing tax base, for tax revenue and that sort of thing.
Right.
Because as you grow that tax base, then that gets spread out, more evenly among more people. Right. That lowers the tax burden on individuals, but also, while doing that, also allows you to do some of the types of cool things that, we've managed to do and plan to do going forward, but do so in an even bigger way, I've actually had folks talk about, well, I don't want Victoria to grow. There's
I've heard that too.
There's traffic and there's this.
Not
and
as
that.
often, but I
So, my comment to them and kind of thinking about that was, look, I'm not talking about we want to build, huge freeways with, overpasses and, all this. I don't want this to look like Houston.
Right.
But I do want growth from the standpoint that I want Victoria to be someplace that, when our kids graduate from school, right? And from high school, if they go off to college and they go out and want to find a job, that we have jobs here that they can come back to,
That'd be great.
And most importantly, bring my grandkids
Right.
with them, right?
Yeah.
But, I mean, just that sort of thing that we want to create an opportunity for our citizens that are here, for businesses, for business owners, for, that could come into the community. And we want to make this a place that if somebody was from here, that if they wanted to come back, they would have the opportunity,
Right.
Yeah. And I think that's kind of a small sliver of what that that growth concept looks like, and I hope that we can put legs under that going forward and kind of move that forward to where it becomes kind of a community-wide thought process. Because really, right now, it's a concept of if we're making decisions,
Right.
we have to factor in the concept of growth in that decision-making process. Is this something that's helping us? Is it going to help us bring in these jobs? Is it going to help us do these sort of things? Is it going to add to the livability of Victoria, which is part of growth, right? Like these projects we're talking about are all part of growth. It's not just purely economic. It's, how livable is this town, right? How livable is this city? That's all part of growth. And so we need to be thinking about that mindset that it should at least be part of the equation when we're making decisions. And so, I thank you for asking about it, because it's kind of something that we've thrown out there and talked about, and we're really still working on. What do the ABCs of it look like?
Right.
But I thought it was important to at least get it out there and let's start having a conversation about it.
I love it. And I'm so glad to hear more about that. And there's so much that even just my 5 years being here at the city, Mayor, that I've learned about local government and the amount of work that's actually being done behind the scenes that so many people don't know. They just see, I'm just going to say it, the potholes. They don't see how everything that you just mentioned, Mayor, that you and Council and City Manager's Office are working toward impacts everything. And the interlaced thought and effort seems to be right now growing Victoria. Growth, economic development-wise, population, sure, a little bit, but ultimately, like you said, it's that just the ability for us to really maximize what Victoria's potential could be.
Sure.
Exactly what you just said.
Yeah.
So I just summarized it. If you
no,
will.
I like
you said
it.
it nice, but I just summarized it.
And you talk about potential, and it's funny because we've talked about potential in Victoria for a long time. From when I was a kid in Victoria, Victoria always had potential, right? I think what we're seeing over the last several years is Victorians are ready to go beyond potential. We want to see results. We want to see, viability. We want to see, how do we take that potential and do something with it?
Right.
I don't think the answer is, well, let's sit back and see what happens, right? I think the answer is, hey, let's create a space that people want to be in. Let's create an environment that's good for business, and let's try to do something with this. I'll use as an example, and I just really thought about this. You may know, many people may know, I have a long-time business relationship as the attorney for the Port of Victoria. Represented them, as their counsel for years now. And so, I know quite a bit about their operation, and I know a little bit about the history. And what's interesting about that, and the reason I bring this up, is that if you get into some of the old records and old documents, you realize that DuPont didn't decide to come here and then Victoria said, well, we ought to build a barge canal. DuPont decided to come here because Victoria decided to build a barge canal.
That makes sense.
And so, when you kind of look at it from that perspective, it's not, we're going to sit back and wait for somebody to come and then we'll say, hey, let's talk about what we can do for you. Yeah. Businesses that are coming, people that are coming, they don't want to talk about what you can do. They want to talk about what are you doing.
We're positioning ourselves.
Absolutely.
It sounds like you're saying there.
Absolutely.
For success.
Absolutely. And that growth, that positioning comes across the board. It's no one topic. It's no one subject. It's everything from boring things like drainage plans, right?
Believe
that
it or
nobody
not.
cares about.
I remember that meeting.
Yeah. And so, everything from that to streets, to strategic development of our infrastructure, to water resources. Always have to be mindful of that. To the sort of things, the livability things we're talking about.
Right.
It's really a broad spectrum that you really have to make sure you're not leaving out vital components that are going to lead to success down the road. And so there's a lot of moving parts.
You guys have done such a great job. I keep saying that. But there's so much to be proud of and to look forward to, it sounds like, in 2025. I mean, really, even beyond. So anyway, I just had to say that.
Well, I appreciate it. No,
Of course.
there's definitely, we've made a lot of progress, and I've been proud to be a part of that progress. And looking forward, then there's some other things that there's challenges ahead, no doubt. Specifically, I'm thinking, one of the big things that is talked about quite often, particularly within the city, is our compensation for our employees.
Yeah.
And whether that's police and fire, whether really, I shouldn't say just police and fire. Police and fire are part of the component, but it's across the board. It's in every department,
Right.
From stem to stern. We need to be cognizant of the fact that we have to pay competitive wages to get and keep
Right.
good quality people in here.
Right.
And so, better people make a difference. I mean, that's just the way it works. When you bring in good talent and you give them what they need and give them the resources and get out of their way, they do amazing things.
Right.
And so that's where we're kind of hoping that we can continue to look at that compensation and how do we make it better. You may recall here a few months ago, I actually put together a compensation subcommittee of the council.
I remember.
Because compensation was something that in my short time on council and mayor, it seemed like it kind of popped up when we started talking about budgets and doing some of that kind of thing. I didn't want it to be just kind of we'll think about it in August and September when we're doing budgets. I wanted it to be something that we really were paying attention to and really trying to find a plan and trying to find alternatives and asking questions throughout the year rather than just at the last minute, so to speak.
Proactively addressing some of those things ahead of the budget process.
That's a better way to put it, proactively. Proactively
that was
looking
great.
at that issue. And so, I know that committee's been working hard. They were not tasked with with an easy task.
I can imagine.
Yeah. And so, obviously, I hope that will help, and I'm anxious to see kind of how that fits into the process and how it fits in our overall kind of compensation goals and directives.
Right.
So,
Yeah, that's great.
Challenges exist everywhere, and that just being one of them. One of the challenges we have, and I think we've adopted these as projects. Relate to two of our big main streets, kind of thoroughfare streets, and that's Guy Grant and North Street. They just, much like the community center,
Right.
they have served us well, but they need some love,
Yep.
And so,
Thinking that.
one of the challenges going forward, and one of kind of my goals and visions as we move forward, is to continue making progress on council's decision that those things have to be addressed.
Right.
They're not cheap projects. They're not inexpensive projects. I think preliminary design on Guy Grant, kind of what we saw was we're looking at in the $10 million range. For that span in there between Salem and Mockingbird. But it would be much improved. That's including
It's
sidewalks
necessary,
and doing.
sure.
Absolutely,
Yeah,
we need to do it. And then North Street, it's just the elephant,
No, you said it right. The elephant in the room. We drive that street all the way to and from 700 Main to the community center, so that makes sense, Mayor.
And I think preliminary numbers on
Yeah.
that. And of course, these were a year ago.
Really?
Was like $42 million. From
See,
from
numbers
5
all
points to the
jumble in my
community center.
mind.
So
Wow.
So obviously. How
the entire
how do you
stretch.
eat an elephant? A bite at a time, right? So bite number one is going to be the stretch in front of Patty Welder,
Got it.
because
Yeah.
what we want to do is go in and not just improve the street, but we want to put in sidewalks. We thought it was very important that if we're going to do sidewalks, let's do the sidewalks in front of the school, right? Let's get that area. Let's
That
start
makes sense.
there.
That's a great thought.
Yeah, and get that stretch kind of taken care of as the first bite. So, again, those are not simple projects. They're not quick. They're not inexpensive, but we need to keep an eye on, hey, these are things that we've committed to, and let's keep that vision and let's keep that goal in mind as we move forward.
And a lot of improvements being made to that side of the town, I guess, if you will, with North Street and then the community center.
Yeah.
So cool.
Sure.
Love hearing about that.
No, we're trying to figure out where
Plowing
are
away.
the priorities, where are the hot spots,
Right,
because
right.
it's all about juggling priorities.
It is,
It really is.
Yeah.
With limited economic resources, I'm sad to say.
I know.
But if we grow, those resources grow with it.
I
So,
was thinking that.
Yeah, that's the
Well,
concept.
Well, was there anything else, Mayor, that you wanted to share with us today? I wanted to give you that opportunity.
No, I think I appreciate you having me on. I like what you guys are doing with this. I think it's great to get information out to folks, and they learn more about the city, learn more about
That's the
Victoria
goal.
and the area, and
Right.
So I will share something. This is probably, I mentioned my involvement with the port. So, you talk about geeking out on stuff. I kind of like weird history stuff. So
We welcome it.
yeah. So, okay. All right. Fair enough. So, there's a lot of people that know a cool fact about Victoria is Victoria County was the county in Victoria or in Texas that had all six flags actually that were flown over it, right? That's kind of a common one. One that may not, that's kind of a weird fact, fun fact, whatever you want to call it, that may not be as well known is that, and it relates to the Gulf Intracoastal Waterway. Okay, the Gulf Intracoastal Waterway is a major shipping canal that goes from Florida to Brownsville. Okay, I mean millions and millions and millions of tons of commodities go over that canal. The first meeting that was had to discuss the concept of building the Gulf Intracoastal Waterway happened in 1905 in Victoria, Texas, at the Hochschild Opera House, which
That was the venue, right?
yeah, that was the venue. Yeah.
Yeah.
And they brought people in from all over the country, up and down the Gulf Coast mostly, Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama. These people in 1905 came to Victoria and had this meeting about, hey, let's build this big ditch, right? I mean,
Is that how it started?
you talk about goals and visions.
that how the meeting went?
Yeah. I mean, you talk about goals and visions. These guys were off the charts.
Wow.
But anyway, so yeah, all that happened
Here
right
we
here
are
in
today.
little old Victoria. So
That's amazing.
Anyway, I always thought that was kind of a cool,
No, I
cool
love that.
fact. So.
I always see those pictures that are Throwback Thursday, and I see the old-fashioned look of all what's now downtown Victoria, Main Street, and I always wonder, what was that? What happened there? So I wonder where that meeting took place. Wouldn't that be cool?
Yeah,
we got to find that one out.
Right, yeah, exactly.
Well, Mayor, was there anything else you wanted to share?
No, I appreciate you having me on, and
Yeah.
it's been fun. And hopefully, I didn't do so terrible that you'll let me come back
Not
at some point.
all. Not at all. Well, actually, in fact, we'll probably have to have you back on if you don't mind. And if you have the availability, we would love to talk with you more about some of the upcoming projects in 2025.
Sure, I'd like that.
great.
That'd be great.
Well, thanks again, Mayor, for your time. Always a wealth of knowledge and information to share with us. I know our residents probably appreciate it, so I sure did. So thanks again, and we'll talk to you next time.
All right, thanks for having me.
Hey guys, thanks for tuning in to today's episode. You can catch this and more past episodes at victoriatx.gov/Town Talk. We are available on Spotify and YouTube. Follow us, make sure you subscribe and get your notifications set so that you'll be notified about future episodes here on out. Thanks again, and we'll talk to you next time.